Hello and welcome to BQ Prime. We are at the Aero Show India, and with me is Alain García, Vice President International Business for Boeing. Alan, thank you very much for joining us on BQ Prime. To begin with, you are pitching for the Apache, for the Air Force that's been done already, delivered with, and the Army one is supposed to be delivered now. When do we see the rollout of Army Apaches?
Okay. As I was mentioning, the first fuselage for the Indian Army Apache has rolled out of our T-Bowl facility in Hyderabad. It's our joint venture with Tata, and that rolled out mid-January. And so we expect the actual helicopter, the complete helicopter, to be delivered approximately sometime in the first quarter of 2024.
And what about the remaining five? Because you have the first phase of 6 helicopters.
Yes. So we actually will expect them to all be delivered around that time frame. So we can deliver probably all, if the schedule holds, we probably would expect to deliver all 6 in the first quarter of 2024.
Is the Army in talks with you to expand it to 11 more, because the contracts allows it to take it to nearly 17 of Apache helicopters?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some discussions on the timing in the interest of those 11. And so it's a matter of when they're ready to further those discussions and initiate, whether it's 11 or less. It's really up to them, but they seem interested in those 11. And so we're just ready to support that discussion whenever they're ready to move forward with it.
No, let's talk about some of the platforms that you have in India. You have the Chinooks, which were celebrated when it came to India. The Apaches are the one. What else is in the plans?
Yeah, so as you know, I mean, we have the C-17 fleets here. And so this is the largest C-17 fleet outside of the United States. And then we also have the P-8s. They have 12 P-8 aircraft here. And they're looking to procure at least another 6 more. And we're working with the U.S. government and the Indian Navy to help that case move forward. We'll see where it goes. So that should hopefully be, if it happens in the next couple of years, that would be great.
What about the Indian JV? Because you have that with the Tatas here. What all is the JV now manufacturing in India?
Yeah, so as I mentioned with that JV with Tata, we have, so again, all the Apache fuselages in the world. So we've been partnered with Tata in that JV for the last 7 years. And in those last 7 years, we've actually produced almost 200 Apache fuselages. And so, those are just for, not just for the US, but for any global customer that's procuring an Apache. And so we see that continuing very far forward over the next decade with many other countries, including India, procuring Apaches. And they will all be built here in India, in Hyderabad. At least the fuselages will be built here in Hyderabad, and they'll be completed back in the U.S.
What about the order book? What kind of order book can we see that? Will it take the entire order flow beyond 2030?
It could be. At least right now, what we see as a potential would take it through 2030. And then, depending on what the more needs are of various international customers, it could go farther. But at least it's out for that long. And so that's a good a good bit of work for our joint venture and the capability that it brings to here in India.
India is also looking for a multi-role attack helicopter as well, and you are looking to put your pitch in there as well. How do you see that progressing? Are you still in talks with the government? Where are we on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, with the self-reliance and the Make in India approach that this government has, there's a lot of talk about co-production and co-development. And so the co-development piece, with this India multi-role helicopter concept, we're of course talking with the Indian government to see, what that opportunity may entail, and just continue that dialogue to just better understand the requirements and make some decisions on where we would move forward with this. But I mean, it's a very interesting. Again, it kind of falls in line with the Make in India objective. And so, and maybe if you were in the inauguration this morning, where Prime Minister Modi was asking, private sector to invest into the into the Indian aerospace industry. I think these are one of those things that we're considering. We've been doing that, and we continue to do that. This is one of those opportunities that we would maybe look at to see if it would work out in that way.
So you will be co-producing or co-developing the entire aircraft with a private sector or a public sector entity?
So again, that's really up to the Indian government on how they want to shape that case. We're just discussing with them on again, just better to understand how they want to move that forward. And so that will determine on what our role could be, what the private sector here in India could be, and what the Indian government's role is. So there's a lot of, this is really in the initial stages, and so we're just trying to help better understand what that could be. But I think it will involve all three. It will involve us, the Indian government, and the Indian private sector to really make that program successful.
Your JV in India with Tata's, you're exporting a lot of fuselage from India.
Yes.
When do we see a full-fledged, fully assembled one getting exported from India? Is Boeing looking to set up a full-fledged facility in India, or is it going to be subsystems and fuselages, which is there?
So, that's always an interesting question because, we have a large final production facility in the U.S. And as we just discussed, there's many customers and airframes that are coming down that production line, that completion line. And so, it depends on the capacity and the demand of that production line. Can it be sustained? And if it can, I'm not sure we would necessarily move the production line there because it wouldn't make a lot of sense from a business case perspective, for a company that has to invest here. And so we just need to make sure it's the right investment for a local Indian company as well as the Boeing company and the U.S. government, because the U.S. government's involved in that as well. So maybe it won't be an Apache per se, but it could be something else in the future, depending on again what the requirements are and what the Indian government's really wanting, right?
So if the multi-role aircraft comes to you, are you going to see 100% manufacturing happening in India?
I mean, again, it's up to what the Indian government wants, but I would assume
the government wants make in India.
Yeah. So I mean, if as you shape the business case, and that, which we would assume that is where it's going to go. But yes, if that's where the government wants, and we work through this project, it would I would assume that it would be fully produced here in India.
What are the other platforms that you're working and offering to the Indian government?
Let's see here. So again, we talked about the P8s, maybe a need for 6 more P8s. There could be the 11 more Apaches, perhaps, and maybe more Chinooks in the future. It's hard to say.
Some talks of additional Chinooks, but I don't know where are we on that.
So we are just waiting for the Indian Air Force to put out their requirements and their priorities on whatever platforms that they would like to have, and we're just waiting for them to tell us when and if they would like more, and we'll be ready to support that request. But otherwise, we're looking at maybe trying to fulfill an in-flight refueling capability, and obviously we know that the Indian Navy is looking for a new fighter, so we're just waiting for a decision from the government there on that, and we're waiting to see what the requirements are for the Indian Air Force fighter requirement also.
The multi-role one?
That is correct.
114. So what are you pitching for that?
It really depends on what the Indian Air Force requirements are. It will help us determine what platform we would offer, and how that would work out. But otherwise, we're just standing by.
SAP put out Gripen E. There's F-21 from Lockheed, and they're also showing off F-35. What is coming from your stable?
So, in the past, we've put on F-18 on the table, and there's been discussion about F-15. But again, nothing is determined from our company until we see the requirements, and then we'll determine which platform we would like to put forward.
Alan, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for talking to BQ Prime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.